Dragon's Dark World presents The Remnants. Chapter 1. The Crimson Rain. The land before Draven came was a barren hellscape, charred and blackened by the blood-red rains that had come from the heavens. Everywhere he looked, remains of what was once an idyllic civilization lay strewn across the scorched earth, like a mocking testament to man's fallacy. He steeled himself with a deep breath as he stood at the edge of this broken realm, staring out into the horizon with a silent dread that weighed heavily on his heart. The air lay stagnant and heavy with the stench of death, choking Draven as he inhaled. Its putrid taste filled his mouth like iron filings, and it reminded him of the horrific disaster that had befallen the land. Above him, the broken shells of once towering buildings stood sentinel in the blood-red sky. The jagged shards of the structures shone like daggers as they pierced the firmament cryptically, ominously warning of what lurked below. Draven crept through the streets, his boots thudding ominously against the broken pavement. He was in a graveyard of once living buildings. Their cracked facades and crumbled foundations whispered secrets of those who had done wrong here. It seemed like the shadows conspired against him. They loomed ominously around every corner, as if daring him to venture deeper into this abyssal realm. The few who had been lucky enough to survive the carnage of the Crimson Rain were mere specters, their pale faces reflecting a grim blend of fear and resignation. But they were not safe yet. Just as Draven stepped among them, a guttural growl pierced the air like icy claws on his spine. The survivors screamed in terror as mutated monsters, warped abominations arising from the depths of madness and death, appeared from out of the shadows. They licked their jagged teeth with ravenous tongues, their eyes filled with an insatiable hunger for human flesh. Draven's heartbeat resounded like the gallows drum as he drew his weapon. His hands were steady, and the cold steel of his blade burned with a desperate vigor before him. He knew this was their only chance at escape, that these desperate actions held the fate of those around him in their grip. The screams of pain echoed through the air, blending with clanging of blades. The survivors fought with heroic valor, but one by one they fell to the malevolent darkness. As Draven battled fiercely, his muscles tensed and his awareness intensified. The taste of blood mixed with putrid air flooded his senses. He faced each terror that lashed out from the pouring rain of red with an unyielding fury. Despite his unwavering determination, the battle raged on relentlessly, with each passing moment bringing more destruction and death. Draven's once resolute heart now felt like a hollow shell, a fragile barrier between him and the grotesque mutations that lurked in the shadows. Their twisted, sinewy bodies moved in perfect synchronization, their dark energy pulsing within them. As he watched the last survivors fall to the merciless claws of their assailants, Draven was alone in a world of carnage and pain. The echoes of their screams lingered in his head, mingling with the dark silence that hung over this forsaken wasteland. His bloodied blade still clutched tightly in his hand. He knew that he could never stop until he uncovered the secrets of the Crimson Rain and put an end to these horrors that had infested his world. Chapter 2. Haunted by the Damned. A pall of darkness cloaked Draven in its impenetrable embrace as his feet trod a path through the forsaken city, now a graveyard for a once grand civilization. With each step he took, the air seemed to grow colder, the twilight moon above taunting him with its ghostly light. The twisted and contorted remains of what was once a proud metropolis now loomed before him. An unnameable dread blanketed every street corner he passed, an otherworldly chill that lingered in the air. He felt as if unseen eyes followed his every move. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he found himself standing in the center of a desolate plaza. Here, Amidst the shadows cast by a dying fire, he beheld the scattered remnants of a makeshift camp, a small beacon of hope in this city of nightmares. The faces of those who had managed to survive stared back at him with haggard expressions betraying their battle against the incessant tide of the crimson rain. Their emaciated faces stared back in a nightmarish trance, the empty eyes of the damned. Draven's soul twisted in anguish for all that these survivors had endured, for the countless loved ones taken and turned into grotesque aberrations by the crimson rain. He too bore this torment deep within his heart. From amongst the huddled congregation, an aged man stepped forward with a voice shaking with despair and determination. He recounted stories of the crimson rain's brutal onslaught, how it had consumed the helpless and transformed the land into an unforgiving realm filled with unspeakable horrors. Draven stared intently, never looking away from the elder's face. The tales of ancient darkness and forgotten rituals stirred something deep within his soul. He heard stories of a crimson rain that had brought death and desolation in its wake, transforming once vibrant cities into graveyards of despair. They spoke of monsters that lurked in the shadows, creatures with an unquenchable thirst for human flesh and carnage. The survivors spoke of their close brushes with death, horror-filled scenes of twisted bodies and rivers of blood. But even within the tales of tragedy, Draven sensed a glimmer of hope, a flame still flickering in the darkness. The city had become a realm where life and death were intertwined in an eternal dance. As the night wore on, the group grew closer, stoking each other to keep going when all seemed lost. A fierce determination filled Draven's heart as he listened to their stories of courage and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The hour of sorrow had passed. Draven solemnly declared a vow to himself and the survivors, to plumb the depths of duskiness, face the root of their fears, and bring an end to the malice that had defiled their realm. He hoisted his blade aloft, bravely marching into the abyss, preparing for whatever terror lurked ahead. Chapter 3: The Veiled Seductress. Draven trudged through the murky cityscape, his heart pounding as he descended further into a nightmarish realm. The eternal rain that had scarred the land seemed to follow him, its crimson hue a warning of the malevolent being he sought. Eventually he stumbled upon an archaic cathedral. He felt a chill in the air, an icy touch that prickled his skin. Something wicked had staked its claim here. In a chamber of shadows and despair, Draven found himself at last face to face with Seraphina Bloodthorn, the undying evil behind the crimson rain. She was breathtaking, yet terrifying, her unnatural beauty masking her sinister intent. Nothing existed but the two of them, standing deep within an abyss of deathly silence. As their eyes met, Draven's soul quivered beneath a wave of fear, unleashing a primal instinct buried long ago in his mind. Despite knowing the danger she represented, he felt enslaved by her captivating magnetism. Her voice slithered with sinister intent, seeping into Draven's ears like a serpent's hiss. She promised him a gateway to freedom from the chaotic aftermath of their destroyed world and the crippling horrors that left nothing but ruin in its wake. Deep within his soul, fire ignited as her words filled him with an unrelenting hunger for salvation and domination. But Draven refused to be ensnared by Seraphina's beguiling influence. He had seen firsthand the heartbreaking devastation caused by her endless craving for control. Filtered through clenched teeth, he battled against the tempting enticements that sought to consume his spirit. A shroud of silent unease descended over the cathedral, tangible in the ethereal presence that surrounded them. His grip tightened around his blade, a physical manifestation of the countless lives lost in painful nights of battle. Unflinching, he met Seraphina's gaze, determined to protect what little remained of humanity from her malevolent darkness. But Seraphina merely uttered a cackle, her voice as cold and empty as a crypt. She reveled in the horror that was Draven's soul, her gaze never shifting an inch. She knew deep down he wanted to wield the same power he fought against. With a wave of her hand, shadows enveloped Seraphina like a sinister specter. They writhed and lurched, evoking visions of Draven's deceased comrades rising from beneath the soil, their eyes seething with unyielding condemnation. The illusions burrowed into his psyche, taking hold of every fear and trauma he had ever endured, determined to rip him apart.
soundtrack of our despair.